Gordon Parks was a seminal figure of 20th century photography. A humanitarian with a deep commitment to social justice, he documented many of the most important aspects of American culture from the early 1940s up until his death in 2006. He focused on race relations, poverty, civil rights, and urban life. He was indeed an enduring avatar of style. Okay, so much for avatars and so much for being kindly deferential. Gordon Roger Alexander Buchanan Parks was a badass. There, I said it. My man was a capable visual storyteller way before visual storytelling was cool. Following a nonlinear route, among other firsts, he was the first black photographer for Vogue magazine and Life magazine. One Gordon Parks was the first black filmmaker to direct a motion picture for a major Hollywood studio, a movie called Shaft. As one writer put it, by the standards of the Jim Crow era, Parks' perseverance rose to the level of biblical. Ah, yeah, John Shaft, Private Detective. I can hear the famous theme song of that movie clearly in my ears. Yes, indeed. Mama, there goes that man. Okay. So, Gordon Parks was most noted for being a professional photographer. You could say he was a visual storyteller who used the camera like a paintbrush and the film like paper. From the in-the-moment candid shots to stage photographic scenes. For my money, Mr. Parks seemed to have a natural gift for it all. I was familiar with Gordon Parks' work in Life and Ebony magazine. However, I'd like to think I have a better technical understanding and appreciation of his work today. These two photos illustrate right away his knack for the dramatic and for good picture taking. Anyone recognize the lady on the right from the original Star Trek? It's Lieutenant Uhura. This is one of Park's modernistic photos. The slightly muted red tones of this 1962 work sort of gives the photo the feeling of a painting to me. The variously reddish lines on either side of her help to frame her smooth build. And we know, based on Putchik's color wheel, that the color orange can suggest emotions of interest and anticipation, while the color green can evoke emotions of trust. The red dress is quite appropriate as Gordon Parks got his break shooting dresses. The Gestalt-related principle of symmetry is at play here, both with the lady and in terms of the overall artifact itself. More of Mr. Parks' handiwork involving fashion models. Strong proportion, balance, and black and white elegance and contrast are among the things that come to my mind here. What about yours? Face yourself to the left, but do it with a summertime meditative joy as expressed within the photo on the left, or exude it with a free-spirited, butterfly-like flair as expressed within the photo on the right. While this famed photographer has wonderfully invoked nature's energy in each background, certainly the local and the focal point of these shots are the lovely models themselves. Besides having a cinematic eye for models and fashion, Gordon Parks was known to be a pretty debonair and pretty nice dresser in his own right. Some people say that he personified cool, something you have or you don't. Gordon Parks is most famous for his photographic portraits. This 1942 portrait is probably his most famous one. Entitled American Gothic, it depicts American woman Ella Watson, who was a cleaner at the Farm Security Administration. This photo was published as a way to introduce America to Americans. It illustrates the Gestalt-related concept of figure and ground, where Parks consciously, strategically, and effectively places the focal point, Ella, in the foreground while juxtapositioning the American flag, intentionally blurry as it may be in the background. Does this photo remind you of another piece of artwork? This just discussed Ella Watson photograph on the left is a direct parody of artist Grant Wood's iconic 1930s painting of the same title, which is on the right. Ellis' photograph was a challenge aimed at the treatment of African Americans by highlighting the inequalities in the so-called land of the free. This photographic concept of lines, as used here, evoke a sense of verticality as they move from one point to another. Mr. Parks seems to use the strong lines of the backlit flag in the black and white photo of Mrs. Watson to intentionally underscore her small size in terms of the daily work grind that Ellis surely had to endure. We see the Gestalt concept of figuring ground here in this 1963 Chicago photo. The visual storytelling principle of true and effective authenticity seems to be apparent in both of the pictures, in which Parks deftly captures each moment. My understanding is that sometimes Mr. Parks would spend up to a week with his subjects, building trust before taking any pictures. Notably, Mr. Parks also very effectively uses the photographic technique of light and dark within these two photos. The first 1967 photo on the left is of the Fontelles family at the Poverty Board in New York City. Can't you just feel the downcast mood that Parks has captured? The second 1948 photo on the right is of a particular Harlem gang leader, Leonard Red Jackson. Makes me wonder a bit what this gangbanger must have been thinking. All of the subjects on this page, in their own way, emanate and ooze a particular sense of tension and dramatic effect. In this 1952 photo, Gordon Parks shoots a wide-eyed man peering cautiously between a manhole cover, invisible to the rest of the world. This is the unnamed hero in Ralph Ellison's famous novel, Invisible Man. In the photo, Mr. Parks utilizes familiar light and dark imagery and the Gestalt-related technique of figure ground. Simplicity and symmetry are also Gestalt principles at play here. This picture well illustrates the principle of similarity. The principle of similarity can be triggered using color, size, orientation, texture, and even fonts. Here, Gordon Parks skillfully uses the natural reality of the moment, the colors, the hat sizes, etc., of the crowd and its closing to help drop you in slowly and gently into the mood, time, and place of this gathering. Both the picture on the left and the right illustrate authenticity again, as well as Mr. Parks' skill with the camera. How do you even get kids to not pay attention to you as a photographer so that you can capture them? I suspect Mr. Parks took many, many photos here and had a keen sense of anticipation as he waited for just the right shot. Overhead shots are used all the time, sometimes for practical reasons, while other times for an emotional effect. On the old football photo on the left, it appears that Mr. Parks has creatively flipped the script, so to speak. I would say that the players are actually looking down on us. The emotion of the players is clear, though. Most seem gleeful and happy, but what other emotions do you detect? On the photo on the right, Mr. Parks has captured the matter-of-fact disposition of two Bible-toting parishioners decked in their Sunday best. I'm guessing that the straw-hatted man on the right will have to ditch that cigar before entering the sacred halls of the church. Another strong composition. What got me in this picture was not the focal point, but the sign. I had never seen a Hollywood-type sign of this nature. Besides photographing themes dealing with race relations, poverty, civil rights, and urban life, this creative took pictures of or with some of the politicians and celebrities of his day. In the black and white photos on the left, Mr. Parks is shown walking with the then world heavyweight boxing champ and definite personality, Muhammad Ali. In the middle, Mr. Parks captures a rather dramatic close-up shot of Ali, known as the People's Champ. The color photo on the right is, of course, a photographic self-portrait of himself. With his classic and timeless examples of photographic style, strong messaging, and impeccable techniques, Gordon Roger Alexander Buchanan Parks is not just the man of the hour, but rather a timeless, ageless, and imaginative treasure.